What is up, my friends? Joshua Smith here with another GSD interview, where we interview top people that are out there just dominating their space. These are people that do not accept mediocrity, that choose to go out there and create an epic life that they want to go out there and live. So today we've got a rock star on the call, rock star here on the show. So excited for today. Today we've got one of the top international event party planners, top entrepreneur, top coach, author. I mean, this guy's done so many amazing things. So honored and stoked to have my friend on the show today, Lord Jason Allen Scott. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you very much. Excited to be on the show. Big fan of the show.
Yeah, no, this is great, man. So, I know that I've been a fan of yours for a while. I've been following you for a while. I know you're doing some big things today. I mean, you're out there party planning, event planning for the biggest names that exist really on the planet today. But you didn't start there. Right. But before we kind of jump into what your journey's been, give us an idea of what you're doing today. Like what is your main focus? What's your business's main focus today?
At the moment, I'm working on three big things. So one is we're bringing something called the London Cabaret Club. Now, Moulin Rouge is the sort of most famous cabaret show in the world, and it's in Paris. And typical Londoners, we can't have something amazing be in France. Okay, we don't mind that they got the weather, we don't mind they got the good bread, but we can't have them have the best experience, especially in the event industry. So we've created a show, it's called the London Cabaret Club. We're launching that in October. We're launching it at the same time that the big James Bond film is taking off, which is called Spectre. And we're hoping to sort of tie in and do some sort of party for the film and to launch the cabaret show. So that's one. Two, it's London Fashion Week. So at the moment, a lot of my focus is doing my last ever Fashion Week, which is just about getting a lot of very tall, skinny girls and boys into a room and a lot of people in black to be in the front rows taking pictures of exactly that. Otherwise, my life pretty much consists of consulting companies who are looking to start event businesses or top event companies who are looking to be connected or partnered with the top sort of line of venues, suppliers, vendors. And then I also do a mentorship for women in events, because our industry is 80% bottom heavy in women and only 2% of the very top make up the sort of board level in women in events. So I'm a strong he for she campaigner in what's called Fast Forward 15, helping 15 women go right to the top from the bottom.
Yeah, I love it, man. I love it. So how did you get into this, dude? Let's rewind the clocks. Take it back from maybe high school, college, what your journey's been that led you into becoming, because I mean, today you're an entrepreneur that has this very, very successful business doing what you do. So what led you into this path?
I'd have to rewind the clocks way back. I grew up with a father who was an entrepreneur. We grew up in what you guys would call the hood, what we call council over here in England, the slums, the ghetto. My grandfather luckily worked for the council, so that means we're the only house in just blocks and blocks of flats, as we call them. And my dad wouldn't take it. He didn't want to work for the council. He didn't want to be a thug. He didn't really know what to do, so he went out and became a prohibitionist. There was no such thing as Irish whiskey where we were, so he went out and he bought Irish whiskey from the States. He got boxes and boxes of it, and we went from restaurant to restaurant pitching this 3 times distilled Jameson's Irish whiskey, best whiskey you can have. He'd show off the Irish flavor. We'd do all the Kiss of the Barney and all that. And he did really well. And because of that, he got me into a good school, and I studied hard. I didn't want to be an entrepreneur. Without question, anything safe was where I was aiming, preferably safe with lots of holidays. So, of course, being a teacher was the most obvious thing. I went into college. I studied education. I loved college. I think any single man is going to love college, so I just really enjoyed that time of my life. I wasn't Van Wilder, something that a lot of people think I was. I didn't organize parties, I didn't organize events. I pretty much stayed to a certain group, although I try to get to know everyone. I worked at the time as a recruiter. I recruited teachers and put them into Asia just for extra money and for a certain lifestyle that I wanted, and I wanted to start saving for that. Finished Bachelor's of Education with honors. I then decided to stay on and do clinical psychology. I did a master's in psychology, and then really didn't know what I was going to do. So I thought about the two things that meant the most to me: good weather and really wonderful people. And Thailand was the most obvious choice. So I packed my bags all into one little tog bag or little gym bag and shot over to Thailand. I couldn't speak a word. I didn't know anything. In fact, if I'm totally honest, I thought Thailand was where Bruce Lee came from. So I thought it was China. It wasn't. It was completely opposite. But I loved it. And I started my very first company, swimming.com. We taught swimming to the Thais, and the Thais can't swim. So it was a great opportunity to make a little money. It didn't do that well, if I'm completely honest. I lost a lot of business. I lost a lot of money. And then the tsunami hit. And then my phone couldn't stop ringing. And then we were teaching teachers to teach them. And we'd start off every lesson by explaining that you couldn't teach swimming to get away from a tsunami. If a tsunami came and you could see it, it was too late, but there were things you could do, and we would teach that, and then we would teach swimming. And that did really well for 2.5 years. I then took a break. I went back to school. I studied radio broadcasting. I thought that'd be a fun job. Again, an opportunity to talk to people, meet people. Radio DJs aren't paid well, though. Someone should have warned me on that. So I was working days on radio, and nights I would do clubs and PSAs, public service announcements. Don't do drugs, stay away from loose women, stay away from looser men. And that made a little bit extra money. And then I did an interview, funny enough, for Fashion Week with a model. And while I was talking to this particular supermodel, I heard a splash. And we had something called dead air, which is this frightening moment where everyone on the radio and listening to radio wonder, is she in the toilet or is she in the bath? And I asked the question. I was young. I was an idiot. I was like, whereabouts are you right now? She said, I'm in the bath. I'm so sorry. And then I was doing the whole, I'm talking to a naked supermodel. Our audience peaked. It went really, really big. I left there on a high. 2 days later, I was talking to my dad, and he said to me, I can't believe you've killed the entrepreneurial spirit. I said, no, I haven't. I actually have a plan. I'm going to interview celebrities and high-profile people, and I'm going to sell those interviews to other radio stations. And I started a company doing that. And then I built from that. I did another bolt-on. I used to take photographs of the celebrities that were coming into the studio to be interviewed. And then I'd sell that to newspapers all over the world. And I started the very first paparazzi company. And I got very lucky, and I did great things. And then one day, I'm interviewing this major movie star. He wasn't a great actor, but he is a movie star. And he said, oh, it's my birthday coming up. I don't know anyone in the city. Organize it. And I thought, this is a great opportunity. Absolutely a great opportunity. Venue, sponsors, 8 women to 2 men was my entire ratio. And if there was a problem, just throw alcohol at it. And it worked. It did really well. I did a couple more from there. I then kind of just stopped everything, and I wanted to take a moment and really think about where my life was taking me and what I was doing. I'm a big believer in planning. You fail to plan, you plan to fail. So I sat down and I wrote out a 5-year goal. 5-year goal was I was going to travel as much as possible. I was going to do every single thing on all my friends' bucket lists, and I would live the dream, as my dad would call it. And I started. I went from top venue to top venue, asking them if they're interested in having an event planner. They didn't need me. I didn't have enough sort of accolades behind my name. And then I got a call from this actor that I did the birthday. And he said, hey, I'm doing a film. Would you like to do the premiere party for it? And I was like, hell yeah. Yes. What is the film? He said, Miami Vice. And I remember thinking, Miami Vice, man. That's the easiest party to throw. It's, it's red, orange, blue jackets. It's jeans rolled up with no socks. It's loafers. It's just easy. I can do mad cocktails, and I can throw this kind of music in. Should have done my homework, something I now teach everyone that I work with. The film was dark. It was Michael Mann. It was the other side of Miami. It was very much the run to Cuba. And it wasn't as big a success as I'd hoped it to be, but I started a fantastic relationship with Warner Brothers at the time and Universal Pictures, and I managed to then get Dark Knight, which was the rebranding of Batman, and that was an incredible, spectacular event. And I've always treated clients more as just the event they're in, but as a relationship, something we could build, something we can grow on. I knew that I wasn't going anywhere for at least 5 years. I had a 5-year plan. And that rolled on. I did Mamma Mia. I was lucky enough to work with Marvel on the very first Iron Man, which was amazing. And it kind of went on and on from that. And I was just doing that until that part of me that loves teaching came back and said, you could help others live out their dreams in events and help them plan their lives so they're not just kind of reactives or wage slaves. And that takes you to where we are today.
Yep, no, I love it, man. So quick question though, did you ever jump into, when you got done with going to college, you were going to become a teacher? And I know you went in and started teaching swimmers, but did you ever get into formal teaching at all, formal education?
I taught at a language school. No, I lie. I did teach at a school. I taught at the American School of Bangkok. I'll never forget. We had an incredible teacher there, principal from Texas. She started every morning by saying, "Good morning, y'all," which to a bunch of Thai kids is probably the scariest thing in the world, other than fried rice. And that was good. I had a really good time. Except one of the teachers, whose name I won't say in fear of losing my life, he scared the living hell out of me. He was a U.S. Marine. He had disappeared on a mission. He told me he'd become a monk. He was hiding from the police. He'd killed a bunch of people. I just said, "Well, I'm out of this. I'm not doing it," and stopped. And that time I was teaching social science, physical education, English, and history of Thailand, which actually I really enjoyed. It was great for kids, and they're just amazing. They're just great kids.
Yep, awesome, man. So what was it about growing up in an entrepreneur household? You know, watching your father be an entrepreneur, where you're like, hey, I want nothing of entrepreneurship in my world. So what was it about that experience that made you not want to jump into entrepreneurship? But then you're with the teaching. What was it? Just the fear of that teacher, or is there other things going on that you're like, you know, hey man, this corporate world's not for me. I do need to go on the path of being an entrepreneur.
Very good question. There's two answers. So let me answer the first one. My dad did really well one year. I'll never forget. For a solid year, he was bringing in wads of cash. I'd never seen so much money in my life. And my grandfather, being a bit of a naysayer and a bit of a wage slave, was like, "Oh, your dad's doing something wrong. I know it." And my dad was just fetching dirt from the Marines. He'd go in, he'd collect dirt from the shipping yards, and he was selling the dirt. And they were buying dirt in kilos. And anyway, my grandfather would sit with me for hours and just say, "Don't believe it, don't believe it." And one day we took a trip down. I must have been about 6 years old. And my grandfather grabbed the security guard at the gates and he said, "Listen, this is a picture of my son. I don't think he's doing good things. I've heard he picks up dirt." And the guy said, "Yeah, every day. He comes in, him and six guys. They collect a bunch of dirt and they wheelbarrow it out. And day after day, he's in here. He's one of the hardest workers I've ever seen." And I was so impressed by that. I really was. I remember like my dad was my hero, and I got a BMX, the first bicycle I ever owned, and it was just really exciting. And then my grandfather passed away, unfortunately, and he was sitting on his deathbed, holding his neck. He had clipped himself and he was bleeding out. And he said to my dad, "Just tell me, Alan, what were you really doing?" And my dad, never forget, leaned over the bed and he said, "We were stealing wheelbarrows."
Yeah.
So I suddenly had a really bad idea of what an entrepreneur was. I thought entrepreneur is just a thug who's got a better story than anyone else. So I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. When I became a teacher, everyone kept warning me that it was a vocation, that it was a calling. It wasn't a job. And maybe my mistake was going to Thailand and working for an institution. It was so hard to have these kids and let them go. You would hear their stories. You'd find yourself having an affinity with them, and then they would just disappear. Whether that was because they left the school or they changed years, or you saw them less and less. And I just found it really hard to sort of watch them go. And at the same time, when I took on a wage job, a normal sort of 9 to 5, I couldn't do the things I really wanted to do. I wanted to travel, and they'd be like, "No, there's only a certain amount of holidays a year." And I thought, "Oh, well, damn, that's not going to work." And then I would say something like, I'd see someone on TV. So let's say I saw Baywatch was really big, and I was like, "Oh, Pamela Anderson. I want to meet Pamela Anderson." And they're like, "Well, you can't meet Pamela Anderson, selling jewelry," which is a day job that I took on while I was looking around. And I thought, that's madness. Why can't I? Why can't I send her a letter saying, "I'm working in this jewelry store and we got the best jewelry ever, and you'd be great in the jewelry." And they said no. And I sat down with my dad one day and I just said to him, I said, "What gave you the belief that you could do this?" And he said, "Okay, how many times have you been close to death?" And I said, at that stage, 3 times. I've been close to death 3 times. I've been shot, stabbed, and kidnapped. And he said, "Okay, and if you were to die right now, what would the biggest regret be?" I said, not living out my dreams, not doing the incredible cool stuff I come up with in my head all the time. And he was like, "Then do that. Because then when it does come calling, you're not going to regret anything. Because your life doesn't come back to you in flashes of highlights. All you get is the regret reel. The girl's hand you never touched, the date you never went on, the money you never spent, the places you never saw." And he was right. That very day, I started my company. And that company was just a T-shirt making company. Not as good as your T-shirts, I must say. They were just like, They were like stamps. I would stamp a white T-shirt with like a funny line, or FBI, female body inspector, or really, really bad lines. But I sold them. I walked on beaches. I sold them on beaches, and that helped me get the event company up from nothing to our first 5 clients, which paid the way to where I am now. In fact, I'm still working with those 5 clients.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So shot, stabbed, and kidnapped, dude.
Shot, stabbed, and kidnapped.
So was that like in your, while you're teaching, then you're going in the evenings and are radio DJing, then you're in the evenings working at the clubs? I mean, was it all associated with the clubs? Or, I mean, how does that happen, dude? I've never met anybody that's been shot, stabbed, and kidnapped.
Well, I'd show you the bullet wound. Well, let's work reverse chronological. The stabbed was in a club. I ran a club called the Penthouse, hence my Twitter name at Penthouse Lord. And it was 3 floors, 6th floor, 7th floor, 8th floor. We had some incredible acts. We had Robin Thicke, we had Neo, we had Pharrell, we had JayZ. And because of that, you got a certain crowd that comes to a venue like that for that kind of event. And I was split. It was probably the least sort of dangerous moment. It was a young couple, and I split them apart. And as I turned to her to say, "Are you okay?" She said, yes, you're still screaming. And I should have just kept my eye on her and then leaned back to see him. Instead, I completely turned around. She grabbed a bottle. It's called bottling. It's very popular in London. And smashed me over the head. I turned around. I must have said something derogatory. I probably did. I'm not going to lie. And the boyfriend pulled out a knife and went up and hit me right in the head, which apparently is a good place to be stabbed. It felt like coffee pouring onto my shoulder. This incredibly hot water. I didn't even realize it was blood until I turned around and grabbed him, and I do a little bit of Krav Maga and sort of got him to the ground and held him down, and then the rest of the bouncers and security ran in, and we got something called a cooler, which cools down the scene, started sort of going into action, and I went off and we got the blade taken out. If we rewind 10 years previous to that, I was kidnapped by possibly the world's stupidest criminals. Okay, they must have thought I was doing okay. I was, my company was taking off. My DJing was doing well. There's an incredible piece of beachfront property that I'd invested in, and they thought they'll kidnap me, and then they'll send a letter to my father to get the money. 2 mistakes, really. One, my dad didn't have any money, so that didn't work at all. My dad couldn't do a damn thing. He couldn't pay the ransom. 2, they obviously hadn't seen a lot of kidnapping films. So what they did was, on the second letter, the one that said, "Now this is what we want," they put their bank details and their actual names to put the money into. So my dad simply went to the police and said, "Here it is, John Smith, bank account 30194, account number, da-da-da, that's who's got my son." Because why would they put the money in a stranger's account? And put the money in, waited. They came out, grabbed them, took them. I was in a toilet for a month. I was kidnapped for a month, which is a crazy thought. Yeah, I was kind of just sitting in this room. I don't get bored anymore, which is the benefit of that. I can sit in a room by myself for hours. And previous to that, many, many years before, I was 12 years old. And I was leaving my bad neighborhood to go to a good neighborhood. My dad was doing really well in the alcohol game, and we were finally moving out of the hood. And I was warned not to go back. That when you're a kid and you grow up in a gang, you don't leave a gang. It's blood in, blood out. And I went back to say, I'm out, I'm gone, and I'll come back, I'll keep visiting. And this guy went off and he said, "Have you ever seen a gun be taken apart?" And I said, "Of course." He said, "Watch, I can do it in 2 minutes." Bam, bam, bam. And he opened the gun up and he put it together, cocked it, and shot me twice. Hit the ground, kind of waited. They walked off. They must have thought they're guaranteed to get me. Then he got me 2 in the chest. Got up, ran off to the hospital and waited, just kind of waited for death. It luckily didn't come. You're not seeing dead people right now. And I was great in a way. I couldn't use my right arm. I learned to use my left arm, but I had to do all my exams orally for 2 years, which made me a great public speaker. It meant that I wasn't scared to stand up and talk in front of large groups of people, which I still use to this day. And I can absolutely see the benefit of it. Although, my one arm is slightly bigger than my other arm, so just more time in the gym, so I can't complain.
Yeah, no, that's crazy, man. So you're out there doing all these events for these big movies, these big actors. I mean, really, they need to be making your life into a movie, dude, is what they need to do.
One day.
Yeah, no, that's pretty gnarly, man. It's pretty amazing. So, yeah, and then the cool thing about that is when you have those hardcore vice, I don't want to say those lows, those situations like that you make it through, then yeah, when we're asking ourselves, what's the worst that can happen? Because so many people are so freaked out to go out there and create something of that fear of failure.
Absolutely.
And when you've had those lows, man, it just removes all that fear. So I love it, man. So speaking of failures, dude, what are, and I hate calling them failures because they tend to be our best learning experiences that really define us of being the men and the entrepreneurs that we are. What are some of the in your entrepreneurial world, some of the biggest failures, biggest learning experiences that you had to go through that have truly defined you to being the man that you are today?
I've had so many. I mean, you know what it's like. The longer you're an entrepreneur, the more failures you rank up, or the more challenges you put behind you. I'd say the two biggest ones one was in the T-shirt game. I managed to get a major retailer, 112 stores to all take on my T-shirts, and it was just a print of a smiley face. And the idea was that the cashier girls would all wear them, and the cashier guys, and it would remind them to smile at their audience base. And I got the order. I was so excited. I've never seen so many zeros before in my life. I ordered the T-shirts from China. I ordered the stamps in to put these smiley faces on. We did the first 100. It didn't come out. I then went to screen printer. We got a screen printer. Everything was ready. And then the T-shirts got stolen in the shipping yard, so as it came through customs. And I thought, oh, well, I don't have money to buy another 110,000 T-shirts. And this was, I don't know, about a 1.8 million return on investment. So I did what any small-time entrepreneur would do. I went to a loan shark to borrow the money, which I still to this day cringe at why I even thought that was good. But maybe because of where I come from. And that's what you did. You didn't go to a bank. You didn't go to VCs or angel investors and say, this is the deal, this is what I've already got, this is what I've done. Anyway, I took the money. I didn't even read the VIG. For those that don't know, a VIG is the interest you pay back on the money you take from a loan shark. I ordered the T-shirts again. That took 60 days to come across. It took me another 30 days to get them all made. So I was in 120 days. I got it in. Finally, I was all excited to collect my money. I'm knocking on the door. And the woman says, I don't know why you're here. Did you read the contract? We pay you 6 months after delivery.
Oh, my God.
So as you can imagine, 6 months after, my VIG was so high, I think I made $12 off a whole deal. Cashed it in. I was like, never wanted to T-shirts again. Never want to hear problems about sizing, or it doesn't arrive, or it's the wrong quality, or the screen print didn't work, or your negative was too expensive. So I got out of that game. But I learned something big. I learned to read every contract. I mean, I'm still the idiot that reads terms and conditions on my iPhone when it says, would you like to upgrade? I'm just double checking there. I'm not giving up my firstborn child so I can have iOS 10.
Yep.
So that's the first. The second was in events. Christmas period is our business period. So in October, November, December, we make 3/4 of our annual turnover because we can do what's called splurge rating. We can charge more because we're so high in demand if you're in the top 100. So I was doing this incredible events. I got this major studio. I mean, I'm talking one of the best studios, multiple Oscar winners. And they got a huge budget, and they were doing this incredible Christmas party. And I thought, fantastic, can't wait to do it. I'd worked 16 days in a row. I was running on adrenaline and cortisol and Red Bull, lots of Red Bull. I'm shooting it down, and I'm getting through, and it's like 9-10 o'clock. They've had their first drinks. Everything's fine. The liquid's going. We've got performers in. We've got a special guest coming in, and I turn around to my ops manager who runs the actual event, and I say, "It's all yours. I'm going home." I walk out, and I'm at this stage based on a very famous square. And straight to the first bar. I'm thinking I'm going to get 2 or 3 beers in me, a couple of shots, and at least I'll sleep through the night. And I don't have any work tomorrow. It's the end of the season, and I can have my Christmas party. So me and my team go down, and we start doing shots and doing drinks and Jaeger bombs and all kinds of bad things. And I get this call from my ops manager that says, the client needs to see you. There's a small problem behind the bar. And I say very eloquently, I don't know what you're talking about. I had lots of drink. And like an idiot, I go back. When I should have just said, I can't go back. I'm never going back. But I did. I stumbled back into the room. And I tried to explain that we didn't have the cause light that they wanted, but we'd replaced it with something else. But of course, being rather intoxicated at the time, I didn't say any of that. I actually just threw up on my client. And that was probably one of the biggest lows because of the power of that client and how small my little circle is when it comes to the kind of events I can do. I got blacklisted. I got blacklisted bad. In fact, I've been blacklisted twice, which is an embarrassing thing to say. I did an event for Keira Knightley, big British actress, and the American actress from Mad Men, and Angelica Houston, and another one. I mean, just like 4 massive names. And they said 250 VIPs are going to come to the space. And instead, 500 people turned up. And it was mental. Anyway, we handled the best we could, and we did what we could to calm things down and move people into areas and everyone is a VIP, of course, so really hard to get everything right. But the very next day I walk in and this woman who runs the scene just says, that's it, you're blacklisted 6 months, you're blackballed, you're not going to get a single job. And I didn't. For 6 months, I was in the desert. My phone didn't ring. I couldn't get an event up. I definitely couldn't get a high-profile event. But it taught me a lot. It taught me to take stock of what counts. You know, I have a great circle of friends. I've got an amazing followership on Twitter. I put it out that I was finally free, that I didn't have a waiting list. And friends and followers and people that follow my blog and follow whatever else started writing saying, well, then great, you can do mine, and then you can do mine. And I also had a time to really stop and go, what have I not done? I've never had a beauty pageant, so I launched a beauty pageant. And I traveled the world, you know, interviewing wonderful people in exotic locations. So great things came from it, but it came from stopping, taking note of what was going on, reevaluating, making a plan, and executing, which I swear by.
Yeah, so you brought that up a couple times with planning, with reflection, and success being in the planning. What does that look like for you? I mean, is something, because I'm there with you. I chunk off a block off of time every single day where it's just solitude, reflection, and highly believe in that as well. What does that look like for you? I mean, how often are you reflecting? What does that look like in your world?
So I try and do it twice a day. So I get up at about 5:30. So from 5:30 to 6:30, I will just take a moment. A friend of mine calls it the Anthony Robbins Power Hour. I actually haven't looked into that, so maybe it is his. But I just take a moment and I thank the universe for all my abundance of blessings. I sometimes do it in my bedroom, and I look across, and I'm recently married to a woman that took me 5 years of planning to get. And I say, thank you for that. Thank you for hooking me up with that. That's a 6-foot beautiful lady, and I don't know how I got that. I'm really lucky. I thank the house that I'm in. I thank the career that I'm in. I'm thankful that I love every single part of my day. And then I do something that I remember hearing on your show, which was the idea of servitude, giving back. And I think, okay, what can I do today that's going to give back? Is it a mentorship? Is it a pro bono startup that I'm going to help in the events industry? Am I going to take someone on that's really suffering with social media, with planning their life, or someone completely out of my industry, and I'm just going to go work a soup kitchen for a Saturday? And I take stock of that. And then I do this thing, which is probably incredibly ridiculous, and I feel like a 15-year-old girl, but I journal. I open up my little book, and I sort of, map for life, and I write down, today I feel good, I'm healthy, I'm fit, I'm going to go to gym, I'm going to have a great day, I'm going to accomplish 4 goals, no matter what. I'm going to accomplish a physical goal, intellectual goal, a spiritual goal, something that makes me feel better, whatever that is, and a fiscal goal, whether that is an act of poverty. In other words, I'm not going to allow myself to spend more than 10 quid, or I'm not going to allow myself a Starbucks today, and I'm just going to put that money aside, or I'm going to fast for the day, and I'm not going to eat anything. I'm just going to focus on the jobs that need to be done. And then at the end of that day, I do the same thing. I do almost a reverse engineering. I thank the universe that I made it through a day, that I'm fit and physical and healthy, and I got to go to gym, and I met those 5 people, and I finished that list. And then if I've missed something, then I literally write there, I didn't do this, and I'll write it in red. And I have an accountability partner, and sometimes if I've done that enough times in a week, maybe 3 or 4 days, I'll call up my friend and I'll say, I didn't get as much done this week. And he'll either be really hard on me and go, well, actually, you need to step up then. That means you're working Friday and Saturday and Sunday this week. You're not getting a weekend off. Or he'll say, you know what, I understand. It's fashion week. It's an incredibly busy time for you. Cut yourself some slack. And that really means a lot to me.
So, I mean, you're a dude that I haven't met you in person, but we talked multiple times now, and really looking forward to that day. But I mean, you're a dude of high energy. From what I can tell, you're in damn good shape. What do you do? Because I'm sure with your profession, dude, and just being an entrepreneur, but especially in your profession, I mean, you have to make sure that your energy's up there and your go. So, like, how important to you is health? Your energy management, and what do you do there?
It's incredibly important. I would say it's one of the most important things. If I get a great session in the morning, my whole day is spurred up. I'm set for it. I follow a program called MAPS Anabolic by a bunch of crazy guys who also have a podcast called Mind Pump. And it's 3 days a week I'm heavy in the gym, and then 3 days a week I'm doing something called trigger sessions, which is just the sort of ropes and stresses. And I'm really stretching out the muscle and I'm attacking the fibers. And there's something about, and I'm sure looking at you in your T-shirt, picking up a heavy weight and dropping it down, that just makes you feel good. And nothing, if you don't accomplish anything for today, you can think, well, I accomplished an hour in the gym today. I had my best deadlift. I had my best bench press. I got to run for 20 minutes straight at full bore. I feel like Jason Bourne. I can take on the world today. And that makes a gigantic difference to everything. Because once I've got that right, then I've got my food right. Then I know, okay, I've worked that hard. I now need to fuel that engine. So I'm going to make sure that I eat the right meals, my 3 times a day, and sort that out. When it falls down is when I have a big event. So let's say I'm doing a wedding, right? And it's 1 a.m. and the wedding's gone great. My team wants to celebrate, and the bride and groom come over and they want to do shots with you, or they want to have some champagne with you. And you go, great, not a problem. Then the next morning, I'm dying. I'm 40 years old. I wish I could jump out of bed at 6 a.m. after a big night out. And then the whole day is almost like a domino effect. I'm not going to gym, which means I'm not eating well. I probably start the day with a Coke and a Snickers bar. So it's just downhill. I've got no energy by 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm searching for like that 5th espresso. Then it's hard. But I think a lot of people just sort of skip the health side. And it's like having a high performance vehicle. If you're going to put in crap, if you're not going to get the best fuel possible, if you're not having the best engineers working on you, then you're never going to get the performance you can have by having everything else right. And that is so important. One of my good friends who passed away was Greg Plitt, which was this incredible, motivating fitness maniac. And I met him about 3 or 4 years ago, and I was lucky enough to be on his show. And I just said, where do you get the energy from, man? I mean, you're up at 4 in the morning, and you're going till 11 at night. And he said, if I get that gym session in, if I can get that motivating exercise out of the way, and it's not even out of the way, it's I'm in it the whole time I'm in it, then it's easy. It's so easy to keep going on that same sort of high frequency. And I try and live that every single day.
Yep. Love it, man. Love it. So what do you do personally for goal setting? Because good is the worst enemy to greatness.
Very true.
It's very easy to get comfortable. I mean, you're a guy that it'd be very easy to just be like, okay, we're good now. We don't need to grow. We just autopilot, travel. I'm making great money. I'm doing all this stuff. But you keep leveling up. You keep trying to take your life to the next level. So what do you do personally for your goal setting to make sure that you're not getting comfortable?
That's an excellent question. And I must tell you, I get those 2 things at least twice or 3 times a year. So the first one is, and it sounds ridiculous to my friends and family, but it's a fact. I get imposter syndrome. I get this little voice in my head. I'm sure occasionally it might even slip into yours, where it says, but you haven't done that much. You haven't cracked 6 figures in 10 months, or you haven't done, and it's to be something ridiculous like, well, you haven't written a book yet. And then I use that as a fire. I go, okay, well, that's the thing then. I'm gonna set up 3 things. 1, I'm gonna say I'm gonna do the book in a year, and I'm gonna make everyone know I'm gonna do it. 2, I'm gonna say that within that year, I'm gonna align myself with a certain amount of people that will allow me to write that book, the best book I can possibly write. 3, what is the reward for writing that book? So I'm going to go to Vegas for 3 days, and I'm just going to forget about work, and I'm going to have a great time, and I'm going to hit every pool party, and I'm going to visit every person I know across the pond. And then and this is going to sound so lame, but it's true. I have a vision board, right? I have one above, like close to my bed. I have one near the mirror where I get out of it every morning when I shower up and dress up. And I have another one in my office, and it's just got 4 goals, and it's got what the goal is, what I'm going to do to achieve it, what obstacles might stand in my way, who I need to align myself to knock the stuff out of it, and the reward once I have knocked it out. And I remind myself every single day. And the last thing I do is what I call my 12-year-old self, right? And everyone's got that. You've got this little kid in you that you can remember that every now and then I just go back and I high-five the hell out of his face. I'm just like, yo, I did that. Remember when you wanted to meet a footballer? Did that. Remember when you wanted to date a top TV actress? Did that. Remember when you wanted to meet that one girl who would never speak to you because she only dated 6'4" American Marines? You married that woman. High five, man. Like, well done. And that drives me. That is a little engine inside of me that I just constantly go back and throw more fuel into, because I think it is so easy. And I know you know this. It's so easy just to go, I'm good. I'm good. I'm in a good place. My family's in a good place. We're okay. We've covered Maslow's hierarchy. We've got shelter. We've got food. We've got acceptance. We're all good in the hood. We're going to just stop for a moment. So yeah.
Yeah. No, I dig it, man. And because and I love I'm a big vision board guy too, right?
Oh,
I even have my kids do it, man. So I've got a
Excellent.
7-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 2-year-old. And every
wow.
year, I mean, that's our New Year's Eve party as a
That's
family,
exactly
doing our
it.
vision boards,
Yeah.
even for the kids. Yeah, because you get to a point where you might be having some of that internal self-talk, but everybody around you is like, oh, dude, Jason, you're good. You've done enough.
Yeah.
It's this mediocrity vortex that exists out there. So quick question for you, a question that I get a lot on the show is people that are trying to succeed on a different level in life, and they're at that point where we are a result of the 5 people that we spend the most time around with, right? So then it's okay. Well, how do I reach up? Because I mean, you're a guy that's reaching up all day long. You're reaching up to the biggest names and probably the most intimidating people to possibly reach up to in the world. What are some of the things that you've done to kind of maybe overcome that fear of reaching up or become successful at reaching up?
You definitely got some hard-hitting questions here. It's an excellent question. Sometimes it's as simple as a philosophy that I have, which is action is the enemy of thought. So when I start getting really nervous, and I only get nervous when I know the person. So I did an event. It was the World Cup, which is like the biggest deal in England, the last World Cup. And I spoke to this hospital, Great Ormond Street Hospital, and they got these kids reach for a dream. They're not going to make it, unfortunately. And their dream is to go to a premiere or meet this English football team. So I put it together and I got this film, Goal 3, big shout out to Goal 3, who were very kind enough to give me the director and give me the principal actors. And we got a cinema to do it. And they put the house lights up at the end of the film. And we got up and I sort of got to stand next to the director and the actors and we shook hands. And then the whole English team came down and the kids were in heaven. And I'm not nervous. I don't know them. I don't care about them, to be honest. I apologize to all the English football team players out there on the planet. I couldn't care. The moment I could see David Beckham from the corner of my eye, my heart was in my chest because I know who David Beckham is. I don't need to follow football to know who David Beckham is. And he's getting there, and I can feel that thing in my throat. I can feel the sweats coming, and I'm thinking to myself, "This is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous." And I just start actioning something. So in my case, I started looking at the kids. I started helping to make sure the guys in the wheelchairs were closer to the front so they could also get a chance to meet David. Or I started moving the football. So that action takes me out of my head and into my body. And then it's mechanic. Then I don't need to worry. I don't need to be in my headspace. And the same can be said sometimes for if I'm doing something for someone. I did a launch for Lady Antebellum, this big band from the States that were coming in, and they had this amazing album. And they're going to hate me for this, but they had me take out the orange Tic Tacs, right? That was like in their rider. Like they'd get this bag of Tic Tacs, and they couldn't eat the orange ones. And they couldn't get coffee from anyone. It had to be Dunkin' Donuts coffee, and I had to search the planet Dunkin' Donuts coffee. And as they were coming closer, I was getting nervous, and I was getting in my headspace, and these guys need the best, and they've already sort of set it up that I need to be nervous. And again, I reminded myself, I just need to action something. I just need to notice that maybe the room isn't ready or whatever it is. And it's that action that takes me out of my head, that takes me into doing something that I don't have time to be nervous. And the same can be said if I'm speaking in front of a room full of people, or if I'm doing a huge premiere for something that's so big and I've been warned that if I ruin it, it's going to kill people. But it's in the end, I have to remind myself it's really not. Like, I don't work for the Let's Save the Kids and Ebola Foundation. I get people drunk, I get them fed, I hopefully give them a memory they're never going to forget, and I get them out the door and get home safely, and that helps a lot as well. But in the end, action is the enemy of thought. Do something. Don't give yourself time to worry.
Yep, love it, man, love it. So you get a lot of crazy requests. And before we started recording here, you're telling me about one of the crazy requests that you're experiencing right now. What are some of like the top 1, 2, 3 craziest requests that you've had out there from a celebrity or an event you were planning?
There's been some crazy ones. There's been some absolutely crazy ones. I had a big diva from across the pond, your side of the world, who didn't want to walk across the park from the radio station she was being interviewed to my venue to do the after party. So we had to get her a really attractive big man to look her in the eyes while they walked her looking at him in the eyes, and someone behind him holding him and walking forward so he wouldn't have to look around for spatial awareness, all the way, it must have been about 100 meters from the radio station, which has been interviewed, into my venue to do the after party. That was ridiculous. That was insane. Oh, and she couldn't sit down. She had to be picked up and placed onto a chair. Like that was mental, like absolutely mental. We've had some riders that are just insane, completely white flowers, white walls, white sofa, black toilet paper. That's very popular. I never heard of that. We've flown in now a toilet for a fashionista for this week for 3 days, that cleans itself, that comes down and then goes up again. It's something from Japan that we've flown in. That's pretty darn mad. It's funny though, because it's the riders that aren't impressive that you remember. It's like someone like Adele comes in and she wants a bottle of water, or John Legend comes in and he's like, well, all I really want is some coffee in the room, or a place for my lady to sit down while I'm performing. And that blows your mind. Or Amy Winehouse, someone you think is going to be crazy and come in and destroy the venue. She comes in like a quiet little storm. She just comes in and, do you have water? And do you have some popcorn and maybe some lemon tea for my voice before I go out? And you're like, wow, okay. And she goes out and she's mental. She's smashing things and throwing things around. And you're like, oh my God. Comes off and she's plain as normal. Thank you very much. And saying nice and everything. And it's incredible. It's that you remember more than those mad riders about a sofa where only groupies are allowed to sit on, or hidden rooms that no one needs to find out about, or there's some crazy stuff. There's some stuff I wish I hadn't signed an NDA on. I love it.
With that stuff, does it get easier, like, because you get so used to it over time, or does some of that stuff still to this day just shock the hell out of you?
Still shocks you every time, and it's the silly stuff that shocks you the most. And I say silly because you will project your vision onto someone. So let's say it's an action star, right? So you can't wait to meet this action star. And in your head, you're projecting all that it is to be a big action man. And he steps out of the Escalade or whatever he's taking onto the carpet, and he's this big, burly muscle boy, and he gets off and he's waving at people and he's pointing and he's doing his classic signature moves. And then, this little dog will come and he'll run back and pick up the little dog and be like, oh, little doggy, and put it back in the car. And you're thinking, really? I never would have picked up on that. Never in a million years. Or like someone like Sandy, like Sandra Bullock, who just loves like Motley Crue and like tattooed guys who are into motorbikes and 4x4ing, but she's America's sweetheart. You wouldn't expect that because you project your own stuff onto her. And the worst with that is the funny guys. You finally meet a Jonah Hill, or you finally meet a Steve Martin, or you finally meet an Eddie Murphy, and you just can't wait to laugh. You're almost laughing when you meet them, and they're not funny. They are straight-laced. Hey, how you doing? I'll have a coffee. I'll have some. Just you're like, really? Whereas someone like Steve Carell, I'd like to say, ticks every box. You expect him to be funny, he's twice as funny. You expect him to be quick, he's twice as quick. He's one of those guys where every projection you have is 100% on the money. And when that happens, like Tom Cruise, it blows your mind. When you expect Tom to be super friendly, and when he grabs you, he literally puts his hands on you and it's like, hey, how you doing? Oh, long time no see. Where have you been? And you're like, wow, I thought I had a lot of energy. You're killing me right now. Then it's amazing. Then it's absolutely amazing.
Yep, love it, man, love it. So a couple last questions for you, but before we get into those, how do our listeners learn more about you? I mean, how do they have to have questions for you, or if they want to reach out to you? How do people learn more about you, Jason?
For one, there's the website, www.jasonallenscott.com, JasonAllanScott.com. And then, of course, there's Twitter. And I respond to every single person. And it is getting harder, I'm not going to lie. Sometimes I'm out for hours and hours and hours, but that's at Penthouse Lord. Fire me your questions, drop me an email, dead simple, lordjasonscott@me.com. And I'll always make a plan to get back to you. Sometimes it might just take me longer, so just bear with me.
Yep, love it, man, love it. So, all right, dude, like let's say that something happens where you get financially wiped out. right? So I mean, your health is good, your wife's good, everything's good on that front. But it's just something happens where your business gets wiped out. You have little to no money. Let's say $500 left over in your bank account. But you've retained all the knowledge over all these years that you've learned from being this entrepreneur and the failures and the successes that you've had. What are the first couple things that you would go out there to do immediately to rebuild this empire that you've built in a much quicker fashion than it probably took you initially?
I would look at the quickest route to clients. So for me, Twitter's been great. Twitter's been amazing. I met my wife through Twitter. I've got some incredible events through Twitter. So I would immediately open a Twitter account. I'd link that to an email address. Obviously, I'd need an email address. I'd open up an email address. I would then open up the magazines. So Forbes magazine, Wired, probably Cosmo, sadly, because it's just great for telling you about events that are coming up. And then I'd look around or I'd ask people, what is the hottest venues in the area? Where's everyone going? Quickest route to money is consulting. So I'd knock on the door, go up to the venue and say, here's my deal. I'll sell events for your venue. I'll be a risk partner. Cost you nothing. Tell me how much you've earned in the last 3 months. I will match that and I'll beat it by 25%. If I do, you pay me X. If I don't, you've lost absolutely nothing. You've had an extra man for manpower to run around for you. Networking so I mean, I do networking all the time, and I'm marketing director at large for the International Society for Event Specialists in the United Kingdom and Ireland, and that's all about networking. I would find out where the biggest networking is happening. So I'd go up on something like meetup.com and I'd have a look. I'd look at Twitter on the hashtags that are about events. So in my case, Event Profs, I'd see if that still exists. Now that I'm in wherever I am with $500, I should still have $500. So I've only probably used it for a cab to get me to the nearest square. And every city has that hub of activity. And if I couldn't find that hub of activity, I'd go to wherever the tourism thing was. So in London, we've got London and Partners, or we've got Visit London. In Dublin, there's Visit Dublin, there's Visit Ireland, there's Visit New York. And I'd walk in and I'd say, where is the hub? Where are most of your event spaces? Where are the top restaurants? I'd go into the top restaurants and find out if they had a dead space. I'd ask if they've ever thought about using that for events. That's a great way to get someone to really look at you in a different way. I'd explain that, again, I could be a risk partner, a joint venture partner. Wouldn't cost them anything to get started. And then I would immediately start to write stories. I think storytelling is a great way to get to people. I'd go back to opening up a blog. I'd link it to my Twitter account. I would talk about the things that I do well. So planning for a living, planning your life, starting up an event company, getting to high-end people, people with lots of money but very little time, and how that works and how different you need to be. You can't just cold call them. I'd join LinkedIn immediately. I'd set up exactly who I am in as little as possible points. And then I would try and link in with the influencers. And then I'd give back. And I know that's a killer, but it's something I know you believe in and I definitely believe in, which is I would look around for what can I do in my speciality where I'm giving back to people. Whether that was setting up a mentorship, or setting up a mastermind program, or running my own event networking opportunity at a venue that's dead on a certain day, and do that every single month so that it's organic and that it's catchy and that everyone knows Tuesday of every single month, come to Palm Springs Modern Oasis, and there's going to be an event professionals networking opportunity, and I'd be there handing out my name. I wouldn't even have a business card because I'd be keeping that $500 for when I want to celebrate once I've got everything running, and that would be exactly my plan.
Yep, no, I love it, man. I love it. So what's next for you, dude? I mean, what's on that vision board that you haven't cranked out yet that is something that is a must for you to accomplish while you exist?
Help as many people as possible achieve their dreams through planning, whether that's event planning or just planning their life, doing exactly what you and I do, which is the vision board, the setting goals, the killing of goals, and that goal setting plan. So I'm working on that. I'm writing a book. I've promised myself I'd write a book in a year. I haven't started. We're in September, which is frightening, but I'll get it done by December, even if I take some time off. I am setting up a podcast inspired by people like yourself, but purely to speak to people in events, and those people who are events. I'm trying to keep it really short and sweet and just find out what they're doing. I am launching a SaaS product. So I'm coming over to Silicon Valley next month. We're launching kind of an Uber for venues for events, an opportunity for venues to go, hey, look at me, this is where I am. So for someone looking for a venue for event, but at the same time, what venues hate is calling clients. I mean, they hate the cold call. I'm sure you know this. People, real estate, everyone hates the damn cold call. And what this little product does is it says, I'm looking for a space in New York, clicks on it, immediately all the venues in that little circle get a little red alert, like a bat signal, and it says, clients looking for space in your area. Would you like to call or email them? The client gets the opportunity to call or email. It's called Venue Me. So we're working on that. I'm hoping to have that done by December. I'm talking in 4 different countries in the next 2 months. That's going to be frightening. Berlin, Las Vegas, Barcelona, and South Africa in December. And that's it. That's my vision board. And you know, that is as far as I'm going. Oh, and I'm going to buy my second house. I swore I would do that by my next birthday, which is April. So I've got 5 pillars. I know exactly how I'm going to celebrate. I've already got the Johnny Walker Blue Label sitting underneath the goal-setting plan. I've got the cigar. I'm all ready. I've even got the suit I'm going to wear the night I go out. So I just need to get those done.
Yep, awesome, man, love it. So you know, the podcast is been dedicated to really not just inspire and motivate, because the inspiration and motivation is helpful and it means a lot, but that can easily lack tactical knowledge, you know, tactical information. And you know, so the podcast is really devoted to giving our listeners out there, giving people that inspiration, that motivation, but also that tactical step-by-step of, hey, how did somebody like you that really came from nothing go out there and create this massive abundance, this massive success that you have, and give that step-by-step a plan of action. You know, a lot of our listeners are people that are in corporate America that are wanting to become an entrepreneur. You know, some might be struggling entrepreneurs, new to entrepreneurship, or having success but want to take it to that next level. What are some maybe last parting words of advice, inspiration that you'd like to leave with our listeners to go out there to create that epic life like you've done for yourself?
I guess my parting advice is, if you're not working on your plan to make your life the best possible life it can be, to whatever you think that is, then you're going to be working for someone else to make their plan come true through your hard work. That's just a fact. And as silly as it seems, your plan or your dream is worth the action. It's worth the work. It's worth the planning. It's worth the execution. But you can't patent an idea. Something I learned the hard way. I had some great ideas and I tried to patent them and I kept getting stopped. And eventually I learned you can only patent the application. In other words, the idea is only half-assed. It's the actioning of that idea that counts the most. So I would say to anyone listening, you know, everything that you say all the time, which is, you know, GSD, just get it done. Get the idea, plan it down, and get it done. Because only through doing it are you going to learn everything you need to know. Only through doing it are you going to find success. It's very rare. And I've got a friend who won the lottery twice. He never felt successful. And I was like, mate, give me the money. I will feel successful for you. You can watch it from afar. But he never felt it. And it was something that he always wanted. He ended up losing all that money starting businesses because his dream was to be an entrepreneur. But he'd never had the failures that we all have when we start our businesses and learn from and get better and better and better. So he never got a chance to sharpen his tool. So my advice, get it done, make a plan, action it.
Yep, love it, man. Beautiful words, my friend. I know how busy you are, and you know, I greatly appreciate you taking time out of your busy day, man. It's been an absolute honor. I've learned a lot. I know our guests have learned a lot. To our listeners out there, you guys, I know we end every podcast with this, but information without implementation is delusion. So you've heard from one of the top badasses that exists on the planet today in his space. Take some nuggets that you've learned today, start taking action, start implementing, and go out there and create that epic life. And again, Jason, man, it's been an absolute honor, my friend. It's been a great interview. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much. And keep doing what you're doing. Keep getting it done.
You got it, my friend. Well, thanks again. And you guys keep crushing it. Go out there and dominate, and we'll talk real soon.